That's the path to 1 million.
$1 million Bitcoin, Samson. When's that going to happen?
My guess is it's going to be this year.
It's going to be this year.
You look at all the factors that we're facing. You have
That's a 10x.
Bitcoin has 17x in the past. There is no upper bound to Bitcoin. So there are people that talk about diminishing returns, right? But if it's a step change, just like the failure of the German mark, it's not a gradual thing and there's no upper bound. It's just gone.
Samson Mow begins by addressing the recent pullback in the Bitcoin market. According to him, this correction is completely normal, especially considering how overheated the altcoin market had become. He points out the exaggerated valuations of certain altcoins, like XRP reaching $3 in the past and still being overvalued relative to Bitcoin's price today. Solana and other altcoins have also been trading at inflated prices, which Mow sees as a natural cycle of speculation that must correct before Bitcoin can make its next major move. Bitcoin dominance, Mow explains, is a key metric to watch. While it measures how much of the total crypto market cap is allocated to Bitcoin, he argues that it is also an indicator of investor intelligence. As altcoins experience shakeouts, Bitcoin dominance rises again, signaling the return of capital to the safest and most robust asset in the space.
Please take a little time to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications for more videos like this. You can also check out our other videos on cryptocurrencies and the overall digital asset space and drop your comments and observations in the comments section below. Everything you do helps with the YouTube algorithm and immensely contributes to the channel's growth. Thanks and enjoy the video.
Well, I've been predicting 1 million for a while, and hopefully I'll hit sometime, but I believe this pullback is very normal because the altcoin market was overheated. If you look at XRP, Ripple, it was $3. That's ridiculous. With Bitcoin at 97 or so, Ripple is still at 260. And then you have Solana and everything. Everything is overpriced right now for the altcoins. So I think it's normal. We come down, they shake off, and then we go back up. Bitcoin dominance increases again. But Bitcoin dominance is really intellect measurement, like how much money is being allocated to altcoins. And that needs to drop before we can take off again, I believe. But overall, Bitcoin is undervalued. And I think even at 100K, 150, 200, it's still undervalued. There's just so much demand for Bitcoin right now from MicroStrategy, from the ETFs, from nation states, from ordinary people buying and hodling, that I don't think people have fully realized that most of the year's supply of mined Bitcoin is already gone a few times over. So you have to understand there is ultimate scarcity in Bitcoin. And I believe the understanding of ultimate scarcity is very far away still. People just can't wrap their heads around there only being 21 million. And when the price drops, people kind of feel confident that I can get it later. But then Bitcoin rips and then there is no later. Like imagine being able to buy Bitcoin at $10,000 a coin. Again, it's not possible. And this milestone of 100,000 will be gone again in time. Two things I would say. One is there are obviously OGs or old hodlers that are going to sell something and, buy a house, maybe enjoy life a bit. So there will always be some coins that are sold outside of the mined supply. But there's also roughly 2 million coins that sit on exchange for market making, trading, and arbitrage. And those 2 million coins, it's dropping obviously. Now it was at more than 2 million before, but now it's at around 2 million. But that is enough for the coins to drop the market. And a lot of it has to do with Bitcoin being a 24/7 market as well. So this drop, I believe, is related to the tariff war. American, Canadian, Mexican, well, we're all going to tariff each other. And it's just panic. So Bitcoin being the only 24/7 liquid market is the only thing that can react immediately. So it's sort of like the market sentiment is taken out on Bitcoin. We're the first to move, the most volatile and the biggest move. And then the equities markets and everything else follows after that when the markets open. Such an antiquated concept, right? But that's what it is. But going back to the point, those 2 million coins is enough to move the market a little bit. And the impact of those 2 million coins, I believe, is becoming less and less pronounced as we increase hodlers. So if you break down the schema of who impacts the Bitcoin price, you have the hodlers. Zero impact. They're just sitting on the coins. And in ways you can look at it, they're coiling up that spring. Then you have the buyers. the people that are DCAing either like by day or by month, or you can say MicroStrategy is also in the DCA category, and hodling, but they're actively in acquisition mode and Metaplanet. And like you said, then you have the traders, which is kind of that 2 million coins. So that is kind of what is driving the market. And Bitcoin will always be volatile because you have that slush fund of coins on exchanges. But that is going to be drained over time. And we do see that. And it makes it more pronounced, the coil up effect from the DCAers and the hodlers. That's the path to 1 million.
$1 million Bitcoin, Samson. When's that going to happen?
My guess is it's going to be this year.
It's going to be this year.
You look at all the factors that we're facing. You have...
That's a 10x.
Bitcoin has 17x in the past. There is no upper bound to Bitcoin. So there are people that talk about diminishing returns, right? But if it's a step change, just like the failure of the German mark, it's not a gradual thing and there's no upper bound. It's just gone. And you use a new thing now, right? It's like, yeah, we don't use horses for transportation anymore. We came here on a car or on airplanes and whatnot. So we used to use the new thing. And Bitcoin is that new thing because it's 100, if not 1,000 times better than anything else we've used as money in human history. But back to the point, what do we have? We have MicroStrategy buying nonstop. We have ETFs, which are a doorway to legacy fiat money. If you go back to all the previous bull runs, where we get bogged down is the exchanges, because that's the touch point, right? That's how you convert fiat into Bitcoin. And if you remember back in the old bull runs, it was like Kraken's backlog for KYCing people was 3 months long. Coinbase, same thing. That's the bottleneck, because to comply as an exchange, you have to KYC everyone, and you don't keep 1,000-person KYC team, right? You have to keep a team that you can feed, and you can't scale it up that quickly. So that's kind of where it tapers off. But with the ETFs, there is no bottleneck anymore. Central banks can buy ETFs. So any demand for Bitcoin can now be satiated without any problem whatsoever. And that is really big. That's why actually I thought 2024 was going to be the year we hit 1 million, because I don't think people fully understand how big that is. Central banks can buy ETFs. There is no barrier for fiat money entering Bitcoin. But I think this year we'll hit it, since we missed last year.
Mow believes that once Bitcoin crosses key price levels, the landscape will change dramatically. At $500,000, Bitcoin will approach half of gold's market cap. At that stage, Bitcoin could begin to demonetize gold as central banks shift their reserves to Bitcoin. Some even speculate that the U.S. might consider selling its gold reserves to acquire Bitcoin, potentially accelerating the shift. A critical part of Mow's discussion is El Salvador's evolving Bitcoin policy. While some believe the country has capitulated to the International Monetary Fund, IMF, Mow sees a more nuanced situation. El Salvador has amended its Bitcoin law to align with IMF agreements, which some interpret as a weakening of its stance.
But you have MicroStrategy, you have ETFs, you have the removal of the barrier, you have nation states, and what else? There's just so much going on, like real adoption of Bitcoin. So I just can't see it not hitting 1 million this year. And the other thing is, you see a lot of people predicting prices, right? They like to be cautious and realistic and say, yeah, it can get to 150. It can get to 200. It can get to 250. Because I think they want to sound reasonable. Nobody wants to be the crazy guy saying it's going to 10x, like me. They want to be, I'm a serious person with realistic projections. But Bitcoin is not a realistic thing. It's a zero-sum game. Either you're going to use Bitcoin or you're going to starve. So it's all or none. And when you get to different levels, like when you get to 100K, when you get to 100K, it's different, right? When you get to 200K, the world again looks very, very different. Just close your eyes and imagine, what does the world look like when Bitcoin is at 500K? That's you're reaching half of gold's market cap at that point, That will demonetize gold if it doesn't get demonetized earlier, because there's talk of the US selling gold to buy Bitcoin to fund their reserves, because that would take out their enemies who have been accumulating gold for the last decade, right? But disregard that. Bitcoin is sitting at 500K. We are the second largest asset now behind gold. It's a very different landscape. And at that point, do you think most people would still want to sell their Bitcoin to get fiat? Or would most people now insist on being paid in Bitcoin? I think it's the latter. So from there, you just 2x.
Yeah.
And then you're number one. It's confusing. And I would say the breakdown is this. It's a glass of water. It's kind of at the halfway mark. You can look at it as half full or half empty. So the Bitcoin law has been softened, or you can say neutered a bit. They've amended it to comply with the IMF agreement, almost to the letter. So everything they said in the IMF agreement, they've amended it. But I think the key thing is the amendments leave the door kind of open. It's ambiguous. So there is still a Bitcoin law, but Bitcoin is no longer a currency. And it is legal tender, but it is now voluntary. So what does that mean exactly? It means Bitcoin is legal tender. There's no capital gains tax still.
Okay.
There's another line in there that says you can use Bitcoin. The government can't now. So there is this Bitcoin law. Bitcoin is legal tender. But what is a legal tender without enforcement? Not that there was before. It always has been voluntary. So you can look at it both ways. Like, some people are reacting very strongly and saying, they capitulated, they bent the knee to the IMF, and, Bukele sold us out. And they're very disillusioned. And then you have the promoters of El Salvador and Bukele, and they're saying, yeah, we won. We're going to take the money and buy Bitcoin with IMF money. But I think the truth is somewhere in the middle. There was a compromise. There was adaptation. The law itself is weakened, but Bitcoin still has a standing here in El Salvador. So you take the good with the bad. And I think it makes sense in the long run. Bukele is not the president of Bitcoin. He's the president of El Salvador. I mean, he has to do what he thinks is the right thing for this country. And if he thinks the right thing for the country is to secure the IMF loan, which will lead to other loans, then that's the way they should go.
Mow argues that this is a strategic move by President Nayib Bukele. As the leader of El Salvador, Bukele's primary responsibility is to secure the best economic outcomes for his country. By complying with IMF requirements, El Salvador can access crucial funding while still maintaining its Bitcoin-friendly policies. This demonstrates a pragmatic approach rather than a complete surrender to traditional financial institutions. Please like and subscribe.